You're sitting across from your closest friend, the one who once felt like family. The conversation starts with laughter, the easy kind born from years of shared history. But then something shifts, a subtle tension, a moment where your opinion threatens theirs. You watch their smile tighten, their tone change. Suddenly the air feels heavier, not from anger, but from something colder, power. It's strange how friendship, a bond built on equality, begins to erode the moment hierarchy sneaks in, the moment one starts leading and the other starts following. At first it's invisible, wrapped in innocent phrases like "trust me" or "you wouldn't understand." But beneath those words, something primal stirs, a desire to influence, to be right, to be above. We like to believe that friendship is built on love, loyalty, and understanding. But what if it's built on a much darker foundation, the illusion of equality? Because the truth is, the human psyche doesn't crave harmony as much as it craves dominance. Even in the softest hearts, there's a hidden instinct, the will to control, to shape the world in our image, to be the one who matters more. And when that instinct enters friendship, what we call connection quietly turns into a silent war for control. Have you ever wondered why long friendships end not with betrayal, but with distance? Why two people who once shared everything suddenly avoid each other's gaze? It's rarely hatred, it's hierarchy. Power has a way of mutating the heart. It starts small, the friend who earns more, succeeds first, or becomes admired by others. Slowly balance fades, admiration becomes envy, advice becomes authority, and equality, that fragile thread, begins to snap. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "Every relationship is a struggle for power." He wasn't being cynical, he was being honest. Because power, by its nature, cannot coexist with equality. And friendship, by its ideal, cannot survive inequality. So the question isn't, why do friends change when power enters? The real question is, can friendship truly exist without the illusion that both are equal? Maybe power doesn't just destroy the powerful. Maybe it exposes the truth about the rest of us, that even in love, we crave control. Maybe the end of every friendship isn't a tragedy, but an unveiling, a reminder that beneath every smile lies the same ancient hunger, to be seen, to be followed, to be right. And when that hunger awakens, even love starts to look like competition. Power doesn't destroy friendship suddenly, it erodes it quietly, through glances, tone shifts, silences that used to be comfortable but now feel loaded. To understand why, we need to look beneath the surface, into the psychology of what friendship really is. Every friendship begins as a mirror. We're drawn to people who reflect parts of us we recognize or desire. It feels safe, familiar. But over time, that mirror begins to shift. You start to see yourself through their admiration, their laughter, their validation. And without realizing it, your self-worth becomes tethered to how they see you. And Carl Jung warned of this illusion. He wrote that all relationships are projections, that what we love or despise in others is often what we can't face within ourselves. When power enters, that projection becomes distorted. You stop seeing your friend as a person and start to see them as a reflection of your place in the hierarchy. And that's where the fracture begins. Because friendship requires equality of perception. Two people who can meet each other without masks, without rank. But the moment one gains power, social, financial, intellectual, emotional, the dynamic changes. The friendship starts orbiting around whoever holds more influence. Arthur Schopenhauer described it best. We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves to be like other people. In friendships tainted by power, we don't share our truths, we adjust them. We dilute honesty to preserve harmony. We hide jealousy behind jokes. We silence disagreement in the name of loyalty. The more unequal the balance, the more artificial the bond becomes. The one with power begins to mistake obedience for respect. The one without it starts to confuse loyalty with survival. It's not malice, it's instinct. Humans are wired for hierarchy. From tribes to corporations, we subconsciously measure status to feel safe. Friendship, then, becomes the only place we pretend hierarchy doesn't exist. But when power slips in, through success, recognition, or emotional dominance, it reveals that even our most sacred connections aren't free from this primal design. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He warned that power and affection cannot coexist with suspicion, that those who rise will always be distrusted by those who remain below, and those who remain below will eventually resent those who rise.
That is the tragedy. The moment you begin to outgrow a friend, you also begin to threaten them. Not because you've changed, but because you've broken the unspoken contract of equality. And yet, who among us can remain unchanged forever? Perhaps the real problem isn't power itself, but our illusion that love can exist without it, that friendship can be pure while our nature remains competitive. When power enters a friendship, it doesn't break it immediately. It corrupts it from within, like slow poison disguised as pride. At first, you don't notice it. You tell yourself they're just busy. You justify the tone in their texts, the way they cut you off mid-sentence. You convince yourself it's fine, because admitting the truth would mean facing the decay of something sacred. But power is patient. It doesn't destroy through confrontation. It destroys through imbalance. Suddenly, one friend starts talking more and listening less. Their victories become stories you must applaud. Their pain become tragedies you must soothe. Your emotions become secondary. It's subtle at first, until you wake up one day realizing the friendship isn't reciprocal anymore. You're orbiting their gravity, adjusting your truth to protect their ego. Psychologically, this transformation is profound. Friendship, in its pure form, is built on mutual recognition. Each person validates the other's existence through empathy and shared reality. But when power distorts that balance, recognition becomes one-sided. You start disappearing in the relationship, not physically, but existentially. And that's the silent trauma of power dynamics. You lose the right to be seen. Cognitive dissonance takes root. You know something is wrong, but the mind refuses to accept it, because to admit it would mean acknowledging that love wasn't enough to sustain equality. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who cannot command himself will obey." When friendship turns into obedience, when your silence becomes the price of peace, that's when you've already surrendered your selfhood. But the most dangerous part isn't the friend who holds power. It's what happens inside you. You start measuring your worth through proximity, not authenticity. Their validation becomes your oxygen. Their disapproval becomes your panic. You begin editing your emotions to remain acceptable. And when you finally pull away, they call you distant, disloyal. Because power rewrites history, making the oppressed look ungrateful and the dominant look misunderstood. Socially, this dynamic mirrors every structure that governs us, from corporations to governments to relationships. Power operates through the same psychological laws. Create dependence, then define reality. So when friendship becomes an echo chamber, it's not just emotional, it's philosophical. It reflects humanity's oldest paradox, that we crave connection, but we also crave control. And in that paradox, every friendship eventually finds its breaking point, because love, no matter how deep, cannot coexist with silent inequality. The tragedy is that we rarely see it coming, until the laughter feels forced, the words feel rehearsed, and the bond that once felt like freedom now feels like servitude. Every collapse begins with silence. The moment you stop speaking your truth to preserve someone else's comfort. Rebellion, then, doesn't start with confrontation. It starts with remembrance. Remembering who you were before the friendship demanded your submission. Imagine sitting in front of the person you once trusted completely. You smile, you nod, you listen, but deep down, something in you has already detached, not out of hate, but out of awakening. Because freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "I'm done pretending." To break free from the psychological gravity of power, you must first reclaim your inner authority. That means detaching your worth from how much you are needed. Machiavelli warned that dependence is the sweetest form of bondage because it disguises itself as love. And in friendships warped by power, dependence becomes emotional currency. You give loyalty to earn validation. You trade your peace for belonging. And you call that loyalty when in truth, it's fear. Rebellion means redefining loyalty, not as silence, but as honesty. The courage to say this dynamic no longer feels equal, even if it costs you the relationship. Because if love can't survive truth, it was never love, it was leverage. Psychologically, detachment doesn't mean apathy. It means refusing to let another person's perception define your identity. You stop explaining. You stop apologizing for changing. You stop mistaking guilt for gratitude. The hardest part of this rebellion is facing the emptiness that follows. When you step away from someone who once controlled your emotional rhythm, silence feels like loss. But that silence is also space. The kind where your real voice starts to echo again.
Nietzsche called this stage the death of the herd. He believed that to transcend dependency, one must walk the desert of solitude, where approval no longer matters and authenticity begins to grow roots. It's in that solitude that you begin to understand power doesn't corrupt friendship. Fear of losing it does. The antidote is not resistance, but sovereignty. You reclaim your time, your energy, your emotional bandwidth. You learn to say no, not with anger, but with calm certainty. And you realize that peace is the loudest rebellion of all. So you stop chasing reconciliation and start cultivating resonance. You stop seeking equal treatment and start demanding equal truth. Because friendship built on hierarchy is not friendship. It's disguised servitude. And once you taste self-respect, you'll never crave permission again. That's the quiet revolution, not in destroying others' power, but in refusing to let it define you. In the end, every friendship destroyed by power teaches the same brutal truth. You never really lost them. You just stopped losing yourself to keep them. When the dust settles, you'll find yourself sitting in quiet reflection, wondering when the friendship shifted from connection to competition. And then you'll realize it wasn't sudden. It was gradual, like a candle burning too long in one corner of the room, leaving shadows where light once was. The truth is, power doesn't just destroy friendships, it reveals them. Because only imbalance can expose the architecture of a bond, whether it was built on trust or on need. When equality vanishes, what remains is a reflection of both souls, one that needed to dominate and one that needed to be needed. But once you've seen this, you can't unsee it. You begin to notice how power infects everything, not just friendships, but workplaces, relationships, even family ties. You see how the world conditions people to trade authenticity for influence, honesty for acceptance, peace for approval. And in that awareness, something inside you hardens, but not with bitterness, with clarity. You stop craving reciprocity and start seeking resonance. You stop mourning who left and start honoring who you became because they did. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's the essence of this awakening. You stop calling inequality fate. You stop calling emotional labor love. You stop calling silence peace. You begin to understand that friendship, when stripped of its illusions, is not about comfort, it's about alignment. And alignment requires truth, even when truth burns. The greatest power is not to dominate others, but to remain undefinable by them. Machiavelli taught rulers how to command, but philosophers like Marcus Aurelius taught a deeper law, that true control is mastery over the self, not over others. So when power destroys a friendship, don't mourn it as a tragedy. Recognize it as a test, one that revealed whether your bond was built on trust or illusion. Because the people who truly love you will never demand your submission to prove your loyalty. They will stand beside your freedom, not beneath your silence. And that's the final paradox. The more you let go of those who needed to feel powerful, the more powerful you become. Not the kind of power that controls, but the kind that cannot be controlled.